Good morning. Good morning, friends. I'm excited about today. I'm excited to get together with you finally. I've missed you guys. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to get started, but I'm excited. Excited about our study. Excited about getting back together. Excited about that I didn't have my Bible ready, but it will be. All right. Hey, Terry. Good to see you on here. Hey, Kim. Good morning. Good to see you. We'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 25 today. If you want to get your Bibles ready and your notebooks ready, and we're going to go to town here in just a minute. I'm going to wait a couple minutes just to see if anybody else wants to hop on. But it was a good summer, short summer. I think every summer gets shorter, honestly. The heat is still there, so to me it's still summertime, but I know school has started, and for those with children or grandchildren in school, it feels different because school has started. Me at my age and my season, I'm not feeling much different this week than I did last, just because I'm not in the crazy of the school year anymore. Did that for 26 years and kind of enjoy not some of that busyness right now. But we'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 25, and we're talking about Abigail today. And I think I'm going to start with a prayer, and then we'll just get going, and people can hop on as they are able. Heavenly Father, we just praise you for today. We thank you for a day that we are able to look at your word and to be able to glean things that you have laid there for us to notice so many years ago, but yet how this word is living and active and breathing and part of our everyday life. And Lord, please help us to see it that way. Please help us to go to your word before we go to anyone else for our strength, for our comfort, for our wisdom, for anything that we need to make it through this world. I just ask that we would lean heavy on you, because I know you're faithful and I know you're there for us, and I know you want that relationship with us. So today, as we're studying Abigail, I ask that you would bring up the things that we need to learn, and that you would show us, and always, please, Lord, breathe a fresh breath of air on this passage, because some of us have read it before, but yet we want to see new and fresh things that you have for us today. So please, we're asking for that mercy. Lord, thank you for your love. Thank you for forgiveness. Thank you for your ability to teach us, even though we are just humans. We're flesh. But yet you've granted us the ability to learn from you, and we don't take that lightly. Please be with us in this study. Please be with the women that attend this study either now or watch it later, that they will hear something from you. Holy Spirit, just speak through this study and help me to get out of the way. Lord, we want it to be about you. We want it to be about your kingdom, and we want to know you better after today. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for all that you did to be submissive to the Father, and we appreciate that more than words can say. And please help us to live in a way that shows you respect for what you've done for us. And it's in your name, Jesus, we pray all things. Amen. Okay, ladies, we will start in 1 Samuel chapter 25. And if you want to kind of put a title over today's lesson, I have Abigail and then Courageous Wisdom in the Heat of Emotion. And I put that on my page because that is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be telling the story and going through and seeing how she behaves, what her character is in the midst of this pressure situation, and how she used her wisdom and discernment in that heat of what could have been a horrible, basically David could have destroyed Nabal and all of his family. Sorry, I didn't really plan on saying that, so I didn't have the words ready. But my point is, I want us to show how courageous Abigail was in the heat of emotion and how her actions ended up saving a lot of people. Okay, and of course, God gets the credit for it, but we're giving her the credit for her character and what she does in this story. Let's go ahead and start in chapter 25, 1 Samuel chapter 25, and let's just read verses 1 through 3 to begin with. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him and buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down to the desert of Maon. Yours might say the desert of Paran, P-A-R-A-N. The difference there is Maon is Hebrew. And so they have different names depending on what group of people are talking about this area. Okay, so David moved down into the desert of Maon. A certain man, verse 2, in Maon, who had property there at Carmel, was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband, the Calebite, was surly and mean in his dealings. Okay, we already have a lot right there to talk about. First of all, let's just kind of skip down after Samuel died and David moved to this valley of Maon. We see that there is this rich, wealthy man named Nabal. And we see that he was very wealthy. And if you know the history of when they say they shear sheep, that's during harvest time. So the time that David is moving down there, when all of this is happening, it's actually a very festive time. It's a very wealthy time because it's just like harvest. Everybody has all the things that they have worked so hard for, and they share it, and they throw festivals, and they have parties, and that is what this time is. So it's a time of abundance. Okay, so kind of remember that in your mind when we talk about what David does. So he knows that this is a time of abundance, and then we're introduced to two characters here. We're introduced to Nabal, and we know that he is surly and mean. There are a couple of things other than that describe him. He was a Calebite. And a Calebite Caleb means dog. And so he was actually said to be of the house of a dog, which is even lower. And so that was not a compliment. And then his name alone means fool. So in that day and time also, their names were connected with their character. Okay, and so we know this name Nabal was not a name we want to name our boys. Fool and to be of the house of a dog. And that's exactly what he was. He was doggish. Okay, and it says in the commentary that he was doggish, which is not a compliment. So he was harsh, which is the surly, and acted badly. He was coarse. He was mean. He acted in this doggish way, aggressively angry at times. Okay, so you kind of get this idea of this man. So he's rich, but he's stingy too, right? A lot, when people are wealthy, it either goes to their head and they become very greedy, and it causes a lot of problems, or they are generous and it causes a lot of blessings. And so we know this Nabal was very wealthy, but a foolish man and doggish in his behavior. Now, to the contrast, we have Abigail. And it says about Abigail here two things. Well, actually three. She was a wife, so that's the fact. But then descriptors, intelligent and beautiful. Okay. Intelligent, we're going to know here in a little bit that word could have been replaced with discerning. because she is described through this whole story as having wisdom and discernment. So that intelligence isn't just saying that she is book smart. It's saying she knows how to take what she knows and put it into practice. And that's a fulfillment of wisdom and discernment in situations. So that was, I wanted to put a little bit more weight on that word intelligent for her. And then this word beautiful. I think it's interesting that this word beautiful needs to mean more than just what we take as, oh, that was a beautiful woman. This word beautiful is only used in the Bible 2 other times, with Sarah and with Esther. So she wasn't just beautiful. She glowed. She had an inner to outer beauty that made her attractive to everyone. And so there was something about her that was catching to the eye, but then there was something about her character that was catching to her spirit and to what God was trying to accomplish. And that's just neat to me, because the flesh says, wow, she's beautiful, but the spirit says, wow, she's useful. And I don't know about you, but as women, we want to be both things, right? We want to be beautiful. We want to be eye-catching. I mean, we'd lie if we said we didn't. And maybe even though some of us are getting past the point where we know we're not eye-catching anymore, we still want to look pretty. And so that it's the attention. But more importantly, as we get older, as Christian sisters, we are looking for that character that draws people in, not to us, but to what we're about, which is Christ. And so we are to look. And so what we're going to talk about today is not a beauty lesson. I won't be telling you what makeup to wear or what creams to use on your face or neck, de-wrinkler to use. That's not what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about that word intelligent. We're going to talk about character. And I am going to share with you what she can teach us about being attractive in character. And again, not to ourselves, but to our Creator. Because we want to draw in people to Jesus. And we can do that with our character. All right, so that is pretty much the setup for our today's study. And let's keep reading. Let's look at verse 4, and we're going to go through, let's just say 8 right now. Let's go 4 through 8. While David was in the desert, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So he's at the place of abundance right now. So he sent 10 young men and said to them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, 'Long live you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours.'" So David's saying, go up and start with a blessing. "Now I hear that it is sheep." This is still what they're supposed to be saying. "Now that I hear that it is sheep shearing time, when your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them, and the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing." And in other places, we find out that basically David and his armies caused a whole hedge of protection around the sheep and the shepherds. Okay, verse 8. "Ask your own servants and they will tell you." In other words, Nabal, if you don't remember this, just ask your servants because they remember being protected. "Therefore, be favorable toward my young men, since we come at festive time." See, in other words, we're coming at a time that you have abundance anyway. So can you return some of that favor back on my people? "Please give your servants and your son whatever you can find for them." He didn't say, we need 1,000 of your sheep. We need 400 skins of wine. He didn't say any of that. He just said, we were good to you. Now we're a little hungry. Is there any way that you could overflow some of your access to us? And he didn't put a limit on it. He was just asking for that return favor from somebody he had protected. All right, in verse 9, when David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. So they did what they were told, sent this message to Nabal, and then waited for his reply. Verse 10, Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is this David, and who is the son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and my water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where? All right. So now we get to see that doggish, surly, mean, coarse man that we described earlier as Nabal, the foolish man. And so when he saw this coming at him, he was greedy. He was like, I did this. This is my sheep for my servants. Why should I give it away? Who are these people anyway? I just think it's pretty childish the way he even worded it. Okay, so now, verse 12, David's men turned around and went back, and when they arrived, they reported every word. David said to his men, put on your swords. So they put on their swords, and David put on his, and about 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. Okay, so here we have a couple of reactions that I want to point out. What was Nabal's reaction? Nabal's reaction was of coarseness. He was doggish. He was cruel. He was mean. He was foolish, right? That was his reaction to this happening. What was David's reaction? David was mad. He was defensive. He put his sword on and told all of his people, we're going to go kill him. Like that was his response to what Nabal did. So I just want to show you Nabal's response to David and David's response to Nabal, because we're going to contrast that with Abigail's response. Okay? And so number one, of course, we have to have points, right, in a lesson. So I think we have about 5. But this first one is that Abigail had discernment when others were acting foolishly. Okay? So we knew, because it told us a little bit about her character, but we're going to get to see her in action, which is so neat to be able to see what does that character look like. Because sometimes we read the Bible and it's like, do this, do this, do this. We're like, well, what does that look like? So we get to see that today in Abigail's story here. All right, so I got to catch up in my notes. All right. So she recognized that this situation was dangerous. Let's keep reading. Let's not miss any of this. In verse 14, we'll go through 17. One of the servants told Nabal's wife Abigail. So one of the servants went and reported this to his wife. You think that he knew that she was intelligent and a little bit slower to become angry? I think so. Even though it doesn't say that, one of the servants chose to go to Nabal's wife. David sent his messengers from the desert to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us. See, the servants did know, but they weren't asked. These men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. They didn't take anything from us. Night and day, look at it here, they were a wall around us. All the time we were herding our sheep and near them. Now think it over and see what you can do. And I just have to say, I think this was the atmosphere. We know what Nabal did. I'm sorry, I just don't know which way to say it. But we know what Nabal reacted, and I think the servants knew that too. And they took the information to a kinder source, which was his wife. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household, which included the servant speaking, I may add. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him. So as if Abigail didn't know the character of her husband, the servant here is saying, help us. We're all going to die if you don't intervene. Help us know what to do. And you know your husband, he's wicked. Nobody can talk to him. All right, so verse 18. Abigail lost no time. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep. And a dressed sheep, just to let you know, it's, and you know, if you don't like to hear this, I'm sorry. We butcher our own animals, so it's not a big deal to me. But to dress a sheep is basically to take the skin off and to gut it and to take the head off, like completely get it ready for a rotisserie or to cut up into certain pieces to be cooked. So 5 completely ready sheep to be eaten. Like as soon as we get there, you get them, you can go take them and cook them, and you've got them to eat. We've done all the hard work. So 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go on ahead, I will follow you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. Okay, so let's talk about her for just a minute. She had a situation come up, a dangerous situation, a highly emotional, and we can't really jump into that. What we can do is think of situations in our own life that are highly emotional, that feel pressing at the moment, and put ourselves in that situation. And here she was, her husband had been harsh, her servant had come basically begging for his life and all of their lives. And she had a pressing situation. And so she had to discern, how am I going to move forward in a very difficult and dangerous situation? So one thing that discernment doesn't do, and I want you to make note of this, discernment does not ignore that she was in a dangerous situation. So being discerning doesn't mean you don't recognize that a situation is hard, okay? But it does, as a Christian woman, have you ask your own question of, what does wisdom require of me? What is discernment? What does Christ require of me? So you're going to be in hard situations. That's a given. And so you don't deny that it's a hard situation. What you do is step back and say, to be wise in this situation, what does that look like? To have the character of Christ in this situation, what does that require of me in this situation? What we don't do, or we should not do, is react. Okay? Regulating our emotions, not being reactionary, being able to deal with difficult people or situations. I have been inundated with different opportunities to teach on this, learn about this, grow in this, teach. I mean, I'm not kidding you. This has been very much what I have been about for the past year, or really 3 years, but really concentrated this last year. And I can see that God really wants me to see, you're going to be in hard situations, but what does Christ require of you in that moment, in your character? Let's look at a couple of verses. You don't have to turn there if you don't want to. I'll just kind of throw them out to you. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." So far we've seen the harsh word that stirred up anger, didn't we? Nabal's harsh word stirred up David's anger. And we're about to see where a soft answer is going to turn away wrath. Okay, so that proverb is perfect for the story. And then also, Proverbs 14 verse 8, "The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way." So what is being wise? It is to discern, to pay attention. And you cannot react. You cannot be discerning, and you cannot be thoughtful about what you're about to say if you're quick, if you're reactionary, okay? And so you can't just knee-jerk respond to something, because in that you've not had any discernment, and in that you're not being wise. Hopefully that makes sense the way I put it. Okay, so there will be moments when emotions are high in our life. People will be behaving foolishly, and circumstances can be very confusing in your family and in your life. But a discerning woman doesn't immediately say, "How does this make me feel?" That is not discerning. we do already feel a certain way about a difficult situation. But a wise woman doesn't jump first to say, how does that make me feel? What a wise woman does first is say, okay, step back. What is true? What is wise? And what does God say he wants me to do in this situation? That takes time, ladies. It takes study, prayer, meditation, listening to the Spirit, being there present in that relationship with your Father to understand how is it that he wants me to be in this. And it may be no reaction at all. It may be no word at all. It may be just drawing back and letting him fight your battle for you. Or it may be, in her case, a way to contemplate the best way to approach a situation to bring good and not harm. So just want to encourage you in these situations. So let's look. Number 2 of your lesson is Abigail chose courage instead of fear. When that servant came to her, she could have said, oh no, get everybody, get all the food, hide in the bunker, get our best men around the house. He's not going to kill us. She could have gone to battle with David. And she could have reacted in such a fearful way, but she chose courage instead of fear. In verse 18 and 19, when she was talked to by the servant, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. My page turned and I'm looking at the wrong verses, and that really confused me. Okay, verses 18 and 19. Where it says, Abigail lost no time. I'm going to keep reading. She took 200 loaves of bread. Okay, I've already read all this stuff. Verse 19, when she told her servants, go ahead, I'll follow you. But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. So right here, she made haste. Okay, and I'm telling you to wait, and then she made haste. I know that doesn't make sense. But the thing is, I don't believe that she reacted immediately. I do believe once she understood what she was going to do, she made haste. Now, let me add this here. If you have a practice of reacting, or I shouldn't even use the word reacting because I don't want us to be reactionary. If you have a habit of stopping and thinking before you speak and act, if that's your habit and you always discern before you act, then I believe you'll learn how to act quicker out of a base of discernment that God has given you the mercy to have because you've dealt with these situations. And what I mean by that is, let's just say something happened to me 3 years ago and the way I reacted was not the way that I would react today. Why? Because I've learned so much since that day. And so that same situation, if it hit me today, I guarantee you I would approach it differently immediately. I hope that makes sense. So she was a woman of intelligence, discernment, and character. So when she did act, it was out of a place of discernment, not out of a place of fear or just reaction off of her feelings. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so she made haste. She did not wait for somebody else to fix the problem. She acted. She either prepared an enormous amount or had her servants help her, or it was sitting around. We don't really know. But she got a lot of food together really fast, put it on all of her donkeys, and I think it's interesting that she sent them on ahead of her. How many times in the Old Testament do we hear, like Jacob did that whenever he wanted to come to see Esau for the first time? He sent like different caravans of blessings, gifts and things ahead of him to kind of, if he was mad, soften his blow. So here, Abigail does the same thing for David. She has heard David is on his way to kill us. And so she sends these donkeys full of really what he asked for, all of the provisions, and she sends it on ahead of her to lessen that blow. That's wisdom. That's wisdom, because here he is seeing, donkeys and food, and the donkeys aren't his enemy, and the food is what he wanted. So immediately he's blessed before their conversation. So that's not an accident that she sent in verse 19 the donkeys on ahead before she actually talked to David. Okay. In verse 20 through 22, as she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her. And when men go to battle, and I don't know anything about it because I'm not a man and I don't go to battle like this, you hear a lot of yelling. You know, you watch football games and they are like jumping up and down all together and screaming at each other and hitting each other on the shoulders and the back and everything. They're pumping themselves up, and that's getting their adrenaline going, because when they attack, I mean, it's obviously a high adrenaline situation to go at somebody with a sword. Okay. I mean, that is close contact, and the courage and the wherewithal to be able to do that. So here come David and his army yelling and screaming and swords drawn and ready for battle. And they're met with donkeys. They're met with food. This is not a mistake. So as David was descending, let me catch up with myself. Verse 20. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the desert, so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David ever so severely if by morning I leave him alive, one male of all who belong to him." And you see the exclamation point, because here he is roaring up himself. He's pumping himself up and his army of like, how dare they, and coming after him. And then he meets Abigail. Verse 23. I cannot imagine being face to face. I cannot imagine. You think about it. We talk about Esther so much, as we should, because of the fear that had to come across her when she faced the king, knowing what the king could do to her. Here's Abigail coming up to a man who is screaming, ready to kill. I cannot imagine. But yet her resolve was beyond what the situation was showing her. Write that down. Her resolve was greater than the situation that was approaching her. That's where we have to be, ladies. That's why we're doing these studies. It's because we have to understand who Jesus is and how he wants our character to be, so that when those situations even blindside us, our quick response comes out of a discerning and wise place. That is our goal. Okay. So verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. I'm going to stop right there. The first thing she did was humble herself. Write it down. I'm going to write it right here. The first thing to do when you reach a difficult situation is humble yourself. That's a posture. The very first instance you are approached with whether it's a person coming against you, maybe a sickness coming against you, maybe a loved one coming against you. I really don't care what it is that comes against you, because it's all an attack. And if you are feeling attacked in any area of your life, the first thing you do is get on your knees, get on your face, and humble yourself. She's one of our examples. We're going to follow after that, because we know the end of the story, and it worked out really well for her. So let's, I've done some things that haven't worked out well, so let's follow her. Okay, so humble yourself is the very first thing. Verse 24, she fell at his feet and said, "My Lord, let the blame be on me alone. Please let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." So the second thing she did was she took the blame. She took it. It wasn't hers, but she took it. because the greater good that was coming was more important than her own pride. Oh, this is speaking. So she took the blame. You know, there's many times, there's many times that David repents for Israel. I hear my husband at this table when he prays, repent for our nation. We realize we are a part of a people that doesn't show honor where honor is due. And so instead of saying, please look upon, this wasn't me, it was Nabal, but I'm taking the blame because I want you. No, she just threw herself down and said, put it all on me. Isn't that what Jesus did? Didn't he say, Father, forgive them for what they do? And he was on the cross. He took the blame. This wasn't Abigail's fault, but yet she took the blame. There's something in that. And then she says, please let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. So the third thing she did was she spoke wisely. So Abigail's coming toward him with courage. That doesn't mean she wasn't afraid. Sisters, one thing that I've learned so much in this season of my life, but one thing I've really learned is that you can have that courage and fear in the same space. You can have grief and gratitude in the same space. I think separating those has made us put so much shame on ourselves. We're like, well, I'm grieving, so that means I'm not grateful. Or when I grieve, somebody tells me to be grateful, and I'm like, I am grateful, but I'm grieving. And wisdom says God can hold all of it in the same space for you. You can be sad, you can grieve, but you can be grateful too in that moment. And here, Abigail is courageous, but part of her's fearful too. But what did she act out of? What was the manifestation of her character? Was through the courage, right? But it didn't mean she wasn't fearful. It meant she was, with that fear, what did she do? She discerned. She was wise. She spoke wisely. So she humbled herself. She took the blame and she spoke wisely. Joshua 1:9, again, a couple of verses that I'll just kind of throw at you. Joshua 1:9 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So replace that courage. Let courage be the bigger emotion and use the part of courage that God gives us to go and do what we're supposed to do, even if it is in the same space as some fear. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has given us a spirit, not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. Our flesh is fearful, but the Spirit says, I have power, I have love, I have self-control. And that is going to trump any fleshly fear that I feel in the moment. This is what describes Abigail so beautifully. She did not respond to David's anger with anger of her own. She didn't come up and say, oh yeah, this is what he did, and this is what, no. She did not come at him as an affront. And we may think, of course she didn't, she was scared. Sisters, we do it all the time. Somebody says something to us, and we right back to them in a negative way. What I'm trying to show is that her response was beautiful because she acted out of the Spirit with power, love, and self-control. She didn't freeze. She didn't run away. She actually moved toward the problem with wisdom and courage. And she did that because she was discerning. All right. So sometimes, where does this apply to us? And I'm not done with the story, but we can make an application right here. Sometimes you may have a difficult conversation. You apologize first. It's hard, especially when somebody has really hurt your feelings and when somebody has come against you, for you to be the one that apologizes first. But remember, sisters, if I say anything in our wifehood, in our motherhood, in our Christian walk, it's we do what we do for God. And humans get the benefit of it. But if I'm going to be a Jesus follower and want to have the character of Christ, then that means I do what he would do, whether I feel like it or not. Because it's not about my fleshly feelings. It's about eternal purposes and kingdom purposes. So I apologize first. I tell the truth. I refuse to participate in gossip. This is what this looks like. I intervene when somebody is being harmed in a wise and discerning way. I choose peace when everybody else is choosing conflict. Courage isn't always loud. They came loud down the mountain, and Abigail got on her knees. They had a donkey, several donkeys, with lots of food and wine, and a woman who fell prostrate before them. And that's what they were met with. It wasn't what they were looking for, but it was what they were met with. So, number 3 of the, I know I've got points here and points here. I gave you kind of 3 little points on what she did in this hard situation. But my overall points about Abigail, number 3, is Abigail used wise words to stop foolishness from being a disaster. I'm going to say that again. Abigail used wise words to stop foolishness from becoming a disaster. That preaches. I hear it, God. I hear what you're saying. This is where I think Abigail's story becomes very powerful. She didn't just do something wise. She said something wise. She chose very carefully what she said. Let's read verse 23. Okay. Let's see. We've already read 23. I'm having to catch up with myself. Okay. So let's go to verse 25. Here's Abigail speaking from a low position. She had fallen at his feet, and she said, "May my Lord pay no attention to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. He is a fool, and folly goes with him. But as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my master sent." So she is saying, listen, for a moment, can we get outside of your anger and let me tell you, I didn't even see. So listen to what I didn't see when your men came and asked for food. So don't lump me in with this man that, reacted this way. Listen to me. So in that moment, she separated herself from what was getting the heat of his passions. Okay. Verse 26. This is so beautiful. "Now, since the Lord has kept you, my master, from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, may your enemies and all who intend to harm my master be like Nabal. And let this gift which your servant has brought to my master be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's offense, for the Lord will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my master, because he fights the Lord's battles. Let no wrongdoing be found in you as long as you live. Even though somebody is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my master will be bound up securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has done for my master every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him leader over Israel, my master will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or having avenged himself. And when the Lord has brought my master success, please remember your servant." Sisters, some of the wisest words outside of Jesus, and I guess Solomon, because he was called, but to me, some of the wisest words you're ever going to read in God's word from a woman is right here. And I'm so excited about it. I'm going to try to slow down and look at my notes because I could really jump the gun here. Okay. So this is important. Her humility. She doesn't tell David what he wants to hear. She tells David what he needs to hear. So what he wants to hear is, I'm sorry, here's your food. Like, we were wrong. Like all of that. He wants to hear that. And actually, he's not at the point of listening, right? He's got a sword in his hand. So he's not here for debate. But she doesn't tell him just what he wants to hear. She tells him what he needs to hear. She acknowledges his anger. She acknowledges the foolishness of what came against him. Okay? So that in itself is going to set him a little bit back on his horse, right? He's going to step back a little bit or step back a little bit in his chariot, whatever he was on. And he's going to breathe for just a second because she's acknowledging that what I came against, he's getting validation in that. She doesn't pretend that what Nabal did was right or that he behaved well. She doesn't excuse his behavior. But she also doesn't let the way Nabal acted end up in what David does to respond. She's pleading for a different response from him. So see, her character is calling to his character. I love this. Oh, sisters. Her character is speaking right into things that he already feels and believes in his character. It's so beautiful. So Abigail was not coming with a defense. She came supporting who David was and calling him higher. This is who you are. And one of these days, this is what you're going to say because you made the right choice in this situation. She came humbly to be listened to. God gently reminds us who we are and calls us higher. I thought about this and I thought this is how God, that's why it's so wise that it's what she does, is because it's what God does for us. God doesn't write in his word, well, I sent my son, what are you doing? And I did everything for you. What have you done for me? And all of these defenses that like, I've forgiven you 50,000 times. Well, how many times are you going to have to, like he just doesn't come at us like that. He says, this is who you are. You're my beloved. You're my children. You're chosen. And this is how my chosen behave. It's reaching deep into the character and the love and getting beyond the emotion. In God, we get emotions from God. So I know he gets emotional. I know he has emotions toward sin and wrong treatment. And he has 7 things that he abhors. Like he has feelings about things. But yet when he calls us to be children, he says, I've created this in you. I've created you as my children. You're chosen. You're my beloved. You're the priesthood. And I've given you these things. And when you are that, this is the way you behave. So this is what Abigail is doing. She is calling him. Her character is calling to him. Deep calls to deep. And she's calling him higher. Which is so interesting because she's on her knees. But she is changing his posture. And I've been talking to a friend a lot about posture lately. And I really want you to think about posture in your life because David came with his head down, his sword drawn, ready for battle, intent. His resolve was there, what he was going to do. And her words softened that. And then her words caused him to look up, which in turn put him under. Because when you look up, you're under the Father, right? And so instead of being in charge and knowing what he's doing and feeling this resolve and reacting in haste and angry in my flesh, he took on this peace and he started looking up. And his character started to reign on him of what he really was in Christ. And he saw God again because this woman showed her through her words and through her humility. She reminds David that your blood guilt, you don't have to become guilty because somebody else acts badly. I'm going to say that again, sisters. You don't have to be guilty because somebody else acts badly. Don't join them in that. You're called higher. Then she appeals to his future. In verse 28, please forgive the trespass of your servant. Verse 30 and 31, She reminds him that the Lord will establish David as ruler. You are being established, and part of your position is one that doesn't look back and have needless bloodshed. See how she is dealing with the now, with this talk of character and who he is in the future. And there's just so much wisdom in it. We can't hardly even wrap our hands around it, but it is so neat. And there's a little phrase that I have put on the back of all of you know that my daughter has Down syndrome, and we do Special Olympics every year. She's 36 now, so I'm her coach, and our family is our team, because once they get out of school, there's nobody to do that for them. And so I've stepped in and I do the coaching and the paperwork and stuff so she can still participate. And then we go as a family up to Stillwater every year to celebrate her, and it's her highlight of the year. And on her back, on our t-shirts, I have a saying that God gave me years ago that I just love, and it is think beyond the obvious. And then I have shoot for the stars. And then I have our creed on there. And then our name of our team is Stars. Because thinking beyond the obvious. So I've written this here because that's what she's calling David to do, is to think beyond the obvious. The obvious is I'm angry. The obvious is he had no right to do that. The obvious is we deserve to be, compensated for some of the good that we did. The obvious is not what she wanted him to see. Think beyond the obvious. Get outside of your flesh and think spiritually. Think about your character and how you want this to look and how you want this to be in 10 years from now, and what you want to look back on this day and say about how you handled a situation. This is extraordinary wisdom. She essentially is saying, David, don't let this moment create a future regret. And I can say that to you, sisters. Don't let one moment become a future regret. Proverbs 15:23 says, to make an apt answer is joy to a man, and a word in season, how good it is. Proverbs 31:26 says, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and teaching of kindness is on her tongue. James 1:19 through 20 says, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. That gives us this powerful question. When emotions are high, what comes out of your mouth? Because pressure doesn't create our character as much as it reveals it. I'm going to say that again. Pressure does not create our character as much as it reveals it. We've always talked about if you have a grape and I squeeze a grape, what's going to come out? Whatever's inside, grape juice, right? So when you're pressured, what comes out of your mouth, what comes out of your character, it's whatever's in here. That's why we have to spend time studying women like this and men in the Bible, and the stay in the Word, so that when we are pressed, what comes out is the Word and discernment and wisdom. So Abigail's crisis revealed wisdom. David, in this same crisis, he revealed anger. Nabal, foolishness. So, when you're under pressure, what does that reveal about your heart? Number 4, Abigail trusted God to handle what she could not control. Abigail trusted God to handle. She couldn't control this army that was coming up against her. She could not come against, but she did what she could do and put herself at the mercy and at the submission of her father first, and then David, and she let him handle what she could not control. She couldn't change her foolish husband. She can't make him reasonable. She couldn't make him apologize. She couldn't undo what he did. But she also refused to be judge of that. And she came and talked to David. Let's read 26 through 29. Now, since the Lord has kept you, my master, from blood. Oh, we've already read that, so I'm not going to read it again. I'm sorry. Again, catching up in my notes. Because she acted on God's behalf and kept David from blood guilt, God used her in his plan. So she was used in God's plan because of her discernment. She trusted God's justice and his timing. And that's in 32 through 37. And we will read this. David said to Abigail, praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. Now see, his character showed up. He saw it. Her character appealed to his, and he saw it. Verse 33, may you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak. Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, go home in peace. I've heard your words, and I grant your request. Verse 36, when Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing until daybreak. That's another piece of wisdom. You don't talk to drunk people. They don't reason. So she waited till daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone. She saved his life with her wisdom. And then verse 38, 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. And then David heard that Nabal was dead. He said, praise be to the Lord who has upheld my cause. God fought his battle for him. And this woman helped. So the Lord upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servant from doing wrong. So he even gave God the credit for, I'm sorry, my brain just left my head. I hope that happens to somebody else here. Praise be the Lord who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. So he sees that God fought his battle through Abigail and his trust and his listening to her. And it was wise of David to listen to Abigail's words, but he also didn't give Abigail all the credit. He said, the Lord, you did this. And he knew that the Lord had moved Abigail because, see, he knew the Lord. And so I just think that's neat. He recognized that you, Lord, have kept your servant from doing wrong and has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head. You've done it yourself. Then David sent word to Abigail asking her to be his wife. She said, remember me. When all this happens, remember your servant. I don't know that she was saying, I want to be your wife someday. I don't even, that's not, I think, what she was saying. She was just like, when things turn out for good, don't forget me. I'm your servant. And he didn't. And she became his wife and came up and became the queen. One of the queens. Okay. So, God handled Nabal, and God will handle your situations as well. So, you need to have that distinction in your heart when you deal with difficult relationships. God will handle that as well. Romans 12:19 says, Beloved, never avenge yourself, but leave it to the wrath of God. Psalms 37:5 says, commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. And then we know it continues, in all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. 1 Peter 2:23, speaking of Christ, when he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. See, here we have an example of Christ saying, God, I trust you. You'll deal with them. I'm just going to stay here in posture of submission to you. So there is a tremendous freedom in realizing that I am responsible for my obedience. I am not responsible for other people's behavior. I am responsible for my obedience. I am not responsible for other people's behavior. I can speak truth. I can act wisely. I can walk away from foolishness when it's necessary. But ultimately, God is the judge. He's the defender, and he is the one that sees what I can't see. Number 5, the very last point of today, Abigail's wisdom protected David. And we've already read about that. Abigail's wisdom protected David and saved him from the consequences of retaliation. Nabal was doggish. Abigail reminded David that he was chosen and that he could be peaceful, something God held close to himself. I love that he said, you're in the bundle that God holds close to himself. Like, remember the position God has put you. He's put you close to his heart. That's who you are. Trust in him. I'm trying to finish up because I know we've approached our 1 hour, so I apologize for that in a way. But I love this study, so I don't apologize for that. So we've read, okay. So here's our challenge, and then I'll leave you with this for today. When emotions run high, are you going to react or discern? Remember Proverbs 14:8, the wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way. When something needs to be done, are you going to retreat or are you going to courageously do what is right? Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous. When I need to speak, will my words inflame or will they bring wisdom? A soft answer turns away wrath. Proverbs 15:1. When someone has wronged me, will I take revenge or trust God with justice? Romans 12:19, never avenge yourself, but leave it to the wrath of God. Will I try to control the outcome or will I entrust myself to God? Psalms 37:5, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. Abigail teaches us that godly wisdom doesn't mean we won't feel strong emotions. It means we don't allow strong emotions to make our decisions for us. And I would connect it to this. A wise woman doesn't allow someone else's foolishness to determine her response. This is a bookmark. Yes, I know it's torn. I tore the ribbon out of it accidentally. This is a bookmark I made for God's Girls this year because I was teaching teenagers how to deal with difficult people. See, that's my theme for this year, seems like. A quick relation acronym is PEACE. When dealing with, I know you can't read backwards, but I'm telling you what it is. It says quick relationship advice. PEACE. When dealing with difficult people, and if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone, and that's Romans 12:19. And then it has an acronym, and I'm going to put it up here, and I'll put it on our page so that you can see it. And it is pray first. You ask God. So right when something happens, Philippians 4:6, ask God for wisdom before you respond. Stop, humble yourself, pray. E, examine your own heart. Check for pride, anger, and selfishness. Like, am I upset because I'm prideful or my pride's being hurt? Am I being selfish? Like, examine yourself before you react to someone else. Then always A, act in love. Choose kindness even when feelings disagree. 1 Corinthians 16:14. C, choose patience. Don't let your emotions lead. Don't let your emotions have the first word. Choose patience, Colossians 3:12. And E, entrust the outcome to God. You are responsible for obedience, not control. Romans 12:18. God is in control. So ladies, I love Abigail. I love what she teaches. We could have talked about it, for 2 hours. But I wanted to make this the best I could. Please get on here and comment the things that you're thinking and what this made you think of. And please, I am really excited that one of these days I'm going to have a study about marriage and motherhood that's going to be interactive. We're going to do it on Google Meet, and we'll be able to talk, and it won't be just this me talking and y'all listening. There's something about that I just... I really do try to think about, as I see your names on here and everything, try to think about you and talk to you personally because I want to be as personal as I can. But read about Abigail. Ask God what you're supposed to be learning. What about your character can mature? Because we're supposed to be maturing, ladies, all the time in our character. And so what do you need to mature in? And what is God trying to tell you here by her example that you can handle your difficult situations in a calmer, wiser, more humble manner and give it to God? He's got it. All right. Love you, sisters. We'll be same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.